Good morning, students. In one of the classes, I gave half of the description of the schoolboy by William Blake, and the continuation that I make today. Now, look at the fourth stanza. Now, the two stanzas are left over, but I continue from the fourth, and you have already listened to that what are the thoughts of the boy, how does he think of the school, what is very much important to him or what is pleasant to him, and what does he want to do. If he goes to school, what happens to him, and what is interested, what is not interested, and he is very much worried in the school, he has already told us. And in the third paragraph, third stanza, he said he does not take delight. He does not take delight in the books that are prescribed to him, and school which is very dull to him, and the very dreary learning bower which is not pleasant to him, worn through with the dreary shower, he has said in the third stanza, which means that he is not happy there, and reasons are given in the second stanza. Now, coming to the fourth stanza, he has said, how can the bird that is born for a joy sit in a cage and sing? How can a child when fears annoy but droop his tender wing and forget his youthful spring? So, think of the attitude, the thought, the interest the boy had. How can the bird that is born for joy? So, the schoolboy, he compares himself to a bird, and think of a bird that is available in nature, that it is free, it can go anywhere, it can soar high in the sky, it is very freely living there, and it enjoys nature, and it enjoys all that are going on there, and it picks up whatever it wants, and if it does not need food, of course it simply goes from here and there, and whenever it is happy. That is our thought. Even Shelley has said and Wordsworth has said, especially Shelley, that when the birds are happy they sing, and human beings are also of the same kind. How can the bird that is born for joy? Ultimately, because think of a human being and think of other creatures. Other creatures are not worried of the future, whereas human beings are always worried of the future. They always groan, or they always think of the past and worried of the future, and thereby live in the present. But think of other creatures, they are not at all worried of the past nor the future. Instead, they are happy in the present moment. That is why Blake compares, he is also one of the, as I told in the last class, he is also one of the persons belong to the romantic movement. He has compared the child, the schoolboy, to the bird. How can the bird that is born for joy sit in a cage and sing? So, caged bird in the sense, you think of the bird on the one side, think of the boy, the child on the other. You have to juxtapose these two ideas. The bird that is born for joy, and I have given you already the illustration that what is happening in the case of human beings and what is happening in the case of other creatures. Born for joy, that you have to understand. Sit in a cage and sing, and if it is caged, cage can be used as a noun, cage can be used as a verb, both, which you have already studied. Sit in a cage and sing. The answer is that not at all possible. Think of the child, think of the schoolboy. If he is sent to school, if he is caged there, already it has been said in the second stanza, in the third stanza, that the thoughts in the school are very dry to him, very dull to him, and he is not happy there. And the very old-fashioned teachings, the very strict, stern masters, the teachers, which he doesn't like, and that is why he feels that he is caged there in the school, just as the bird that has been caged sit in a cage and sing. Naturally, there is no happiness. If it is caged, it cannot sing happily, because already its mind is obsessed with the thoughts that it is caged and its very freedom has been lost. We have to think of freedom here. If freedom has been lost, what happens? And freedom in the sense, don't think that it is control. Freedom in the sense, one has to have the chance to express his ideas, which doesn't mean that freedom in the sense it is an easy-going life. It is not that the poet Blake is putting forward. Sit in a cage and sing. So, we get the answer that the bird that is born for joy should not be caged. The child, as Blake has put forward, or Blake has said here, that the child is not ready to go to school, the child is not able to learn there, and that is why he is just like the bird, wanted to be happy in nature, wanted to listen to the songs produced by the birds, the hunter and the skylark there in nature. How can a child, when fears annoy, but droop his tender wing and forget his youthful spring? And how can a child, when fears annoy, he is bothered by the fear. How can a child, when fears annoy? In the first two lines, the bird has been described and the caged bird cannot sing. In the same manner, the child is not able to be happy in the school. How can a child, when fears annoy, it is always bothered what is going to take place in the school, or in the next moment what is going to take place, and whether the teacher is the strict master, the strict teacher is going to punish him. What will happen, or what may happen, what can happen, these are the thoughts of the boy. How can a child, when fears annoy, he is always feared by bother, by annoy, but droop is annoy. Here you can give the meaning bother, or you can say that he is worried of fear, but droop is tender wing. So here you may ask a question, some students may ask a question, they may not understand that does a child have wings, feathers? No, comparison is given, but droop is, how can a child, when fears annoy, but droop is tender wing. So, soft wing is very soft, and the very thoughts, the feelings of the child is also very soft. The feelings are soft, the very emotions are soft, the thoughts are soft, but droop is tender wing. Just as the bird that has been caged, what it can do except drooping or bending his tender wings, nothing else can be done by the very bird. In the same manner, the child who is there in the school, the boy who is there in the school, what he can do, or what it can do, is that it can simply sit there without any learning process, without any good thoughts, without any good feelings, without any good emotions, except, but here meaning except. Droop his tender wing. The bird, what it can do except drooping the very bird's wings, bending and simply sitting there, no good feelings. And if the emotions, feelings, passions are not good, naturally good songs are not available. In the same manner, the child there in the school, reference to the comparison has been given, and the reference is to the boy, the school boy, who is simply sitting there without any activity and forget his youthful spring. So, if a child has been there in the school over a period of time, 15 years or 20 years, let us say, or even 1 year is to a child very long it is, and that is why, and forget his youthful spring. So, I have told you that these are all seasons I have written here, and now spring in the sense very childhood, and summer youth, winter old age, and autumn you can say that it is the latter part of youth can also be said there. Now, and forget his youthful spring. Whatever has to be grown in the minds of the child based on whatever the child has got inherently, right from God. The time when it has got its birth, the child's birth, already there are latent capacities, and that is why Wordsworth has said, child is the father of man, he has said. Already the capacities are there, the potentialities are there, and those potentialities, those latent capacities have to be grown, and such an atmosphere has to be given to the child. But the schoolboy has said that doesn't take place in the school, and that is why he forgets his youthful spring. The very childhood days are forgotten there, and what that it has thought to do, they cannot be done there in the school, just as the bird that has been caged, and that is why he forgets, the child forgets his youthful spring, his growing time, his childhood days, and next of course adult stage, and from childhood to adult, and that time has been simply lost, and the child is not at all happy there in the school. Look at the next stanza. Oh, so I have already told you that the expressions in the first stanza, it is after the first stanza that is available, or first stanza last, oh, what sweet company, and there the child is quite happy, the child is very, very joyous, and that is why, oh, when it comes to the second stanza, second line, oh, it drives all joy away, and now it is the third expression, oh, father and mother, he has said. So, he calls the attention of the parents and tells them that if buds are nipped and blossoms blown away, and if the tender plants are stripped of their joy in the springing day by sorrow and care's dismay. The child calls the attention of its parents, oh, father and mother, are you not in a position to help me? Don't you help me? Don't you give any attention to what that I am speaking here in front of you? I have thought of songs of the birds, I have thought of the sound produced by the huntsman, I have thought of the song of the skylark, and many more sounds available naturally there by God's grace, and I am thinking of those, and I am not thinking of the school. Oh, father and mother. He calls the attention of the parents, if buds are nipped and blossoms blown away, and once again the child has been compared to a very tender, soft plant. Oh father and mother, if buds are nipped and blossoms blown away. So think of, now here the bird has been addressed, I mean the bird as a metaphor it is given, and the comparison has been made, and now here a plant has been brought into the description. If buds are nipped, nipped means cut, you can simply say they are taken off, they are removed. If buds are nipped and blossoms blown away, and if the tender plants are stripped of their joy in the springing day by sorrow and care's days. This stanza and this stanza, the last stanza, they go together, but let me explain. Oh father and mother, if buds are nipped and blossoms blown away, think of a soft plant, think of a tender plant where the time when shoots are coming up, or the very tender buds, buds in the sense flower bud can also be thought of, and buds, the very tender plants that are growing on the sides of the very stem, and then of course they are growing into leaves or branches, that can also be thought of. Both are relevant here. Why? Because if buds are nipped and blossoms blown away, if the tender shoots, if the tender buds have been nipped or cut, removed, then you know that what is the importance of a leaf? Why do trees, plants have got leaves? And that is why if simply the stem is available there without its growth, and every time when it is growing it has been cut, it has been stripped off, it has been removed, what will happen to the very plant? You know that it will die, or it will lose its very happiness, it will lose its very potentiality, its capacity. If buds are nipped, means once again you have to compare, juxtapose the ideas. If buds are nipped in the sense, if thoughts of the child have been cut, if the feelings of the child have been totally shattered into pieces, if the emotions, if the very strong feelings, if the passions of the child have been disturbed, and blossoms blown away, what will happen? That has been said later. And blossoms blown away. So, flowers, blossoms blown away, there comes a rough wind, the very rough wind comes and all the blossoms, all the flowers have been taken away by the wind, and they have been spread somewhere else in the very unwanted area, not in a good place, let us think, and blossoms blown away. And if the tender plants are stripped and blossoms blown away, actually the flower, it has to flower, flower can be a verb and a noun at the same time. If blossoms are blown away, if flowers have been, the flower bud, it has to open up, it has to do the work of flowering, it should not be there. Instead of that, blossoms blown away, the very flower buds have been shattered into pieces, they have been taken away by the rough wind. What will happen to that particular flower? Just think, just imagine that. In the same manner, the thoughts, the feelings of the boy have been disturbed or totally attacked by the stern teachers, the old fashioned teachings of the school. Naturally, the child's thoughts would not grow, the original thoughts would not grow. And if the tender plants are stripped of their joy in the springing day, and tender plants, here the buds are nipped, the flower buds are nipped, the flower buds are cut, and the flowers have been not allowed to be flowered, instead they have been taken away by the rough wind. Now think of, if the tender plants are stripped, the very leaves have been stripped or removed. Once again, of their joy in the springing day. So these are all the growing time, youthful spring. So it has to prepare its life for the next stage, that is the summer, the youth. It has to prepare its time for the next stage of life, and for which it is preparing. The child says that it is preparing itself, or the boy says that he is preparing himself by going there in nature. But if it is not permitted, if that option or that permission hasn't been given, what will the child do? Just as the growing bud has to be a flower later, and if it is not possible, what will happen to the flower? What will happen to the bud? If it has been nipped, whether the flowers will be there? If the tender plants are stripped of their joy in the springing day, the plant which has to grow and which has to be very strong there, and then of course it has to be a strong plant, and then of course it has to be called a strong tree, and then of course it has to give birth to its flowers and very tender or fruits, tender items or tender ones, the very tree, or else fruits should be borne by it. And if the tender plants are stripped of their joy in the springing day, tender plants are not allowed to grow of their joy, means if the tender plants are stripped of their joy in the springing day, in the sense, if the tender plants are not allowed to grow by itself happily in the springing day, or in the very time, at the very time when it is a plant, what will be the condition of that plant? By sorrow and care's dismay. So what is the motto, what is the idea behind this? That the buds, if they are not allowed to grow, naturally it is not good. And buds reference to the feelings, the thoughts, the ideas of the child. And blossoms reference to the very thoughts of the child. Blossoms, thoughts of the child. So, thoughts, if they are required, they have to get a shape at the initial stage by feelings, by emotions, and then only thoughts would come. If the emotions and feelings are good, thoughts will come there. And if they are not taking place, naturally that child will not grow happily. Child will not grow happily in the sense its mental condition will not be good, its imagination will not be good, its thoughts in the future when it is a youth, the boy is a youth, he is a youth, it will not be good. The thoughts will not be good. The very boy who is going to be a man, he will not be a good person. And if the tender plants are stripped of their joy in the springing day, just as the tender plants are not allowed to, simple terms if I say, if the tender plant is not allowed to grow by itself happily, naturally the tree will not be good. You have seen bonsai trees, etc., or the trees that have been grown in plants in pots, and you see what happens there, stunted growth we say. They don't grow happily, because the moment you grow, the moment they come up by themselves, you cut, you prune, you never give scope to that particular plant to grow by itself. In the same manner this will happen. Tender plants are stripped of their joy in the springing day by sorrow and care's dismay. So, what are the problems of the boy? He has said, the boy has been compared to a bud, the boy has been compared to a blossom, the boy has been compared to tender plants or tender plant. And what are the disturbed thoughts here? He is very much sorrowful there. To the boy, he is sorrowful, he is worried, cares, dismay. Dismay means worry. He is very much, he is not given care and attention. He is worried of the care. He is worried of the attention, because attention hasn't been given. And if this takes place, the boy will be just like a flower bud which has been nipped. The boy will be like a blossom, the flower which hasn't been grown properly and which hasn't been flowered properly. Boy will be like a tender plant which has been stripped, and its very good thoughts have been curbed, have been totally shattered, cut their joy in the springing day. Now look at that. How shall the summer arise in joy, or the summer's fruits appear, or how shall we gather what griefs destroy, or bless the mellowing year when the blasts of winter appear? So, if these are the conditions, as the boy has said in the first, second, third, fourth and fifth stanzas, based on this he says, how shall the summer arise in joy? If our background is not good, if our thoughts are not good, if the feelings are not allowed to be grown properly, if the emotions are not allowed to be flowered properly, allowed to be expanded properly, what will happen in the future? When he is a youth, he says, how shall the summer youth, how shall the summer arise in joy, or the summer's fruits appear? So, naturally, after spring season, that is March, April, May, then June, July, August, the time when birds are full of tender ones and the fruits, how shall the summer arise in joy, or the summer's fruits appear? How is it possible? He questions himself, and the questions are thrown to all parents, that if the child hasn't been allowed to grow properly, how is it possible that his youth will be very good and joyful or joyous, happy, pleasant, full of mirth and ecstasy? Or the summer's fruits appear. And if in youth, during the time when he is a youth, how can he create some good things, good works, and how can he have good thoughts and good activities? Or the summer's fruits appear, in the sense, summer fruits reference to, in the case of plants, in the case of creepers, etc., the fruits of course, but in the case of the human being, I mean the boy, summer's fruits in the sense, the very good thoughts and the good life and the good way of thought, then leading to old age, that is winter, reference to old age. If he does not if he does not prepare a platform for the next stage, that is why I have already told you that except human beings, all the other creatures, they never think of the future, but man, including woman of course, all human beings think of the future. He prepares a platform for the future time, future stage. How shall the summer arise in joy, or the summer's fruits appear? Or how shall we gather what griefs destroy, or bless the mellowing year when the blasts of winter appear? So, how shall the summer arise in joy? How will he get a good youth and he will be happy during youth? Or the summer fruits, his works in a good way, how will it come up? It is not possible is the answer. Or how shall we gather what griefs destroy? And if everything has been destroyed right from childhood till youth, right from infancy till the stage youth, if everything has been shattered into pieces, if every action, every feeling, every emotions have been totally broken, how shall we gather what griefs destroy? He has questioned that. He has asked a question, how shall we gather something good, something constructive, something creative, what that has been destroyed by grief, sorrow, and he is full of annoyance and worry. How is it possible? He has asked the question, which means that it is not possible for him to have good thoughts, creative thoughts, constructive thoughts, and thoughts for the next stage, next life also. Or bless the mellowing year. Mellowing means rich, smooth and pleasant. Rich and pleasant can also be said. Smooth and pleasant can also be said. Or bless the mellowing year. If the next stage, or if in the case of a plant, in the case of a bird, if everything is fine, everything is good, of course, it has to think of the rich and pleasant year or the pleasant time of the future. But if it is not possible at the initial stage, naturally it is not possible to think of rich and pleasant year, because its life has been totally broken, and as a result of that it never expects rich and pleasant or smooth and pleasant or very comfortable year. It does not expect. In the same manner, the child is also not able to think of a pleasant life, a pleasant stage of life of the future, because already it has been destroyed or attacked or totally troubled by the grief, the sorrow, etc. Bless the mellowing year when the blasts of winter appear. And the next stage, as I have told you, winter old age is available, and when the blasts of winter, blast means sudden gusts of, it is in the glossary it has been given, strong gusts of winter snowstorms, sudden gush of the wind. When the blasts of winter appear, blast means sudden attack it is. When the blasts of winter appear, even in the case of plants, in the case of very creatures in nature, God has already given the gift to them. Some of the plants, some of the trees, that during the winter season they don't do any work, they shed off all their leaves and there is no work. And some plants, they keep quiet by themselves and they don't do any work. And even creatures, I mean the very birds, etc., they also during the winter season, they do not do many activities, less activities are available. In the same manner, when the human being reaches after childhood, right from infancy till youth, means childhood everything, he grows, good feelings, emotions are available, and youth, during which once again he works more, creative thoughts, very constructive ideas are available, and prepares himself properly, and a proper stage has been prepared for the next time. And when the blasts of winter appear, he is not able to concentrate on what that he has to do, and that is why he will suffer, says the boy. And this is in total the nutshell of the explanation of the schoolboy, and read more so that you will understand. If at all you have doubts, ask for the same. Thank you, students. Thank you.